Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video here on the Sports Daily Media Network YouTube channel. I'm your host, Sean Vowells, and with me is Joe Meade. And today, Joe and I will be recapping the Indiana versus Notre Dame game in the first round of the college football playoff. And Joe, it ended up being the closest of the four, but it really wasn't anything close. Notre Dame did make the first mistake. They threw an interception. Looked like Indiana was going to go down, take the lead, but Curtis Rourke throws an interception on the goal line. And on the first play after that, Jeremiah Love takes it 98 yards to the house. And then since then, it was all Notre Dame until a couple of garbage time touchdowns and converted onside kicks. But Joe, we laid out the way that both teams win this game, and this sort of went to our Notre Dame script. They scored first. Their defense really put them in a great spot, and they did enough offensively to end up pulling away and getting the job done.
Yeah, Sean, I thought the fumble was the clear turning point. I'm sorry. I thought the interception was the clear turning point of the game. The 98-yard TD might as well have been the dagger, unbeknownst to most of the audience. But I thought me and you called it pretty spot on that Indiana needed to probably win the turnover battle. They didn't. It was 1-1. But that's not even relevant to me anymore because Notre Dame, the following three of their next four drives in the first half, they score a touchdown or a field goal. So, I mean, Indiana just couldn't match them, and ultimately, that's what Notre Dame wants to get you. And if they get you up, they get you down by two scores. You saw Indiana kind of rush a bit. Curtis Rourke looked uneasy most of the game, and their offense could really not get anything going. You're looking at this drive sheet here: 3 and out to start the second half, another 3 and out, and then the one time they got a first down and netted 12 yards on that drive. I mean, a complete failure from the offense until the end of the game. I thought it was nice they put up some fight, but at the end of the day, you can tell Notre Dame had their eyes set on Georgia. So the Irish advance. Indiana, still a very good season, but hard to not feel a little disappointed considering the two best opponents they played. It was two lifeless performances that was really caused by 2 or 3 mistakes that kind of led to the destruction.
And yeah, Joe, I do agree. The defense for Indiana, I do think, held up enough. I mean, to keep a team like that under 30. Had we said that, you would have thought, all right, well then there's maybe a chance Indiana can hang with this. But the offense, which ranked so great all year, and the 3 best defenses that they played, to not get past 20. That's what the next step for this Indiana program is, and we'll spend a whole time in the offseason what the outlook of the program is, but this wasn't particularly close. We thought Notre Dame was a much better football team with them being at home, getting 2 weeks prep, and we saw it kind of across the board, Joe. Not a spoiler alert for our other videos, but when the home team is better and gets ample time to prepare, they're going to look like the better team. So Notre Dame moves on to play Georgia. That game will be previewed in another video. But Joe, I think Riley Leonard had a really important game for the Irish here. It was pretty clear that they did respect Indiana's run defense, and Jeremiah Love did. His first carry was 98 yards, but he only gets 10 on the next 7. And then Jadarian Price really didn't get anything going. Riley Leonard only 11 for 30. So I know it's easy to say after they cracked off the 98-yarder that still counts, and it does. But for them to just get 100 more rushing yards after that, Notre Dame probably had to do a few things differently offensively than they have all year.
Yeah, Sean, I thought that's what they really brought him in for. I think he's given them not necessarily the biggest upgrade over Sam Hartman, but I do think the mobile ability of his game was something Indiana had to respect, and it was something that they clearly game planned for. I think you're spot on. I did think they did a really good job containing him to a certain point, but ultimately extending plays and then them respecting it, having to commit an extra defender really made a difference on the few key plays we talked about. So I think Notre Dame's going to have a lot better of an effort to beat Georgia. I don't think anyone's going to be shocked by that statement, but I do think for the context of this game, they did everything they had to, and I don't know if it was a Freeman out-coaching anything. I think they definitely out-prepared Indiana. Indiana made the critical mistakes that Notre Dame didn't. And ultimately, that's why this game was. It didn't look like it. Doesn't look like it on the final tally sheet, but it was really a blowout for most of the game.
Yeah, and it was 27-3 at the 2 minute warning. And now Indiana did have a chance where if they had got that last 2 point conversion, they could have. They had two very good onside kicks. They recovered one of them and were pretty close to the other one. But, at this point, I think Freeman did outcoach Signetti big time. Joe, that fake, was it a field goal where they kind of motioned out of the field goal formation and Signetti runs down, calls a timeout, but they run the play still before the whistle goes, and they don't get it. And then Freeman takes the 3 points. But that just seemed like to me that Freeman was just one step ahead. I think I don't know if preparation was so over the top for Notre Dame, but the in-game adjustments were big. Indiana's second drive where they went down the field and got into the red zone was pretty impressive. Notre Dame didn't really have much of an answer. They get the interception, and then the rest of the game, they were able to really stop Indiana's run without sacrificing so many bodies to the line. And the makeup of the future teams offensively will be different, but they didn't give Rourke a ton of time. I thought they probably still could have put more pressure on him. He didn't make a ton of good throws. Their corners guarded really well. I mean, a lot of the throws were just 50-50 balls.
Yeah,
And not sort of the crossers that Indiana gets, where they're wide open in the middle of a zone. There's a lot of back shoulder balls. There was a lot of 50-50 balls, and that's why Rourke's stat line ended up being the way that it was. But Notre Dame's defense did an excellent job. Riley Leonard probably did a lot more than people expected him to in this one. 23 for 32, 200 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And Joe, at the end of the day, Love only has 8 carries. Price only has 11. I know the next game is 10 days away from when this one went final, but you were able to not run your all-star running backs into the ground. You got a good performance from your quarterback, and your defense held a pretty awesome offense to 3 points for 58 minutes. So I think Notre Dame probably would have liked to win this game by more, but in terms of, this was probably the worst outcome for how the game went. They missed a field goal. They got held up a couple other times. Once they get the lead and they chew that clock, they're going to win the game. Now, they might not put up 40 like an Ohio State did against this Indiana team, but in terms of, some of those other games didn't end up being as close, but at least the outcome was in doubt at halftime. It really wasn't here, and you have to give the Irish credit. And at the end of the day, Joe, they probably are a 58-yard field goal away from being undefeated.
absolutely. And I do think Al Golden. I know he doesn't always get his flowers, particularly after that USC game. But I do think he's been one of the better coordinators all year in the country, and I think that's why the consistency they've had through the Brian Kelly era to now with these defenses, even with positional changes, different line coaches and whatnot, it's truly impressive. And I think that's why they've been very consistent ever since that disastrous 48 season they had in 2016. That's why Notre Dame's been consistently, 8, 9, 10, 10 plus wins every year.
And Joe, the schedule probably didn't turn out to be as good as Notre Dame probably hoped when they scheduled these games because, they don't have a conference, so they're scheduling all 12 games. But the few good teams that they did play, they won them without a doubt. Whether that was Navy or Army, who were ranked at the time, this Indiana team, Florida State, obviously nobody really could have expected them to be that bad. They win there. They beat USC. They beat a ranked Louisville team at the time. Joe, they haven't had a game that's been anywhere close since. I mean, if you want to call that USC game close, you can, but that you never really felt like they were going to lose. You'd have to go back to September, and that is a testament to how good Notre Dame has been. They came into the playoff playing really well. They had the extra week of rest with no conference championship, and we're going to talk about it on a later video, but they should be pretty close to Georgia. That spread is about it even, and it should be a pretty good game. But, Joe, we'll talk about that game another day, so unless you have anything else to add, we'll wrap this one up.
No, Sean, I think we're all good. Let's see if, similar to some other teams we're going to talk about here, if Notre Dame could finally get the big one.
Yep. So Notre Dame wins 27-17 over Indiana and advances to the quarterfinals where they'll play Georgia. We'll see you next time.